How's it going, guys? Today in this video, we're going to be going over 9.2, day 4. It might say day 3 in your notes, but we're changing it to day 4. Today we're going to be going from graphs into our actual equations that we've been seeing the past few lessons. This g of x equals a times 1 over x minus h plus k, or this g of x equals 1 all over 1 over b times x minus h plus k. All right, so how we go from a graph into this equation is that we're going to look at the asymptotes of the graph. We're going to figure them out because remember, our asymptotes will be in the form x equals h or y equals k. So those will be our forms for the two asymptotes. And once we figure out what our asymptotes are, we'll have our h and our k. We'll plug it back into one of those two equations, whichever one we're asking you to plug them into. And after that, we'll take one of the 2 points that we give you guys. We're going to take them, put it into the equation as well, and solve for either our A or our B. So let's actually do an example now. So on number 1 over here, we're telling you guys we want you to give us the equation of this graph in this form. We're going to use the form that has A in it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out our asymptotes. So vertical and horizontal asymptotes. Remember, our vertical asymptote is the one that goes up and down, and that's in the form x equals h. So in this case, it's x equals 3. It's this asymptote right here. Okay? So if our vertical asymptote is in the form x equals h, and our equation for our asymptote in this graph is x equals 3, that means our h is 3. Our horizontal asymptote is this asymptote right there. It's the one that's horizontal, the one that goes left to right. And the equation for that one is y equals 4, right? It's going right through the, every single point on the asymptote has a y value of 4. So that means the equation of the line is y equals 4. And our horizontal asymptote is going to be in the form y equals k. So if our equation for this asymptote is y equals 4, that makes our k value 4. So we have our h and our k term. And what we're going to do now is plug it into the equation that we give you from the beginning. So we have g of x. That's going to equal our a term that we're going to solve for times 1 all over x minus our h value of 3 plus our k value of 4. So all that's left is to pick one of these 2 points, either 4, 6 or 2, 2, and plug it into our equation. Remember, our points are going to be in the form x comma g of x. Or in other words, our y term of the point is going to be our g of x. I'm going to go with 4 comma 6. So my 6 is my g of x or my y term. So I have 6 equals our a value that we're solving for times 1 all over our x value of 4 minus 3. And all of that plus 4. So that 4 and the 6 is coming from the points. We plug them in, and now all we have left to do is solve for a. So we'll minus 4 on both sides. 6 minus 4 is 2. And we're left with a times 1 all over 4 minus 3 is 1. So a times 1 over 1, which is just 1. So we get that a equals 2. So we take this a and plug it back into our original equation with the h and the k. So we have g of x is going to equal 2 times 1 all over x minus our h of 3 plus our k value of 4. And that's our equation for this graph. So we're just going to find our asymptotes. That gives us our h and our k. Plug it into the equation that we give you. Plug in either point. It doesn't matter which one you pick. You get the same thing regardless. So you're going to plug that back into the equation as well with the h and the k. Solve for either your a or your b. All right? So let's go on to example number 2. For example 2, we're giving you guys the equation, or telling you to solve for the equation of this graph with the equation that has a b in it. So we're going to go about it the same way. We're going to find our asymptotes first. So our our vertical asymptote will be the vertical one. The one goes up and down. In this case, it's x equals -3. Every single point on the asymptote has an x value of -3. So that means our whole equation for the asymptote is x equals 3. Or sorry, -3. So if our vertical asymptote is x equals -3, our h is -3. Our horizontal asymptote is the one that goes left to right. It's this one in red. Every single point on that asymptote has a y value of -1. So that means our horizontal asymptote is y equals -1. And if our horizontal asymptote has an equation of y equals -1. That means our k value is -1 as well. So we're going to take our h and our k and put it into our equation that we gave you guys. So we have g of x. That's going to equal 1 all over 1 over b. We're going to be solving for that b times x minus our h value of -3. So it's a plus 3 minus 1. So now we can pick either one of our 2 points, -5, 0, or -1, -2. I'm going to go with -1, -2. I'm going to plug it into my equation, and we're going to solve for our b. So -2 will equal 1 all over 1 over b, multiplied with -2 plus, or sorry, -1 plus 3. So -1 is our x value, all of that plus 3, minus 1. Okay, -1 plus 3 is just 2, so I get -2, or rather, let's add that 1 over as well. So let's add 1, then we get -1 equals 1, all over 1 over b. -1 plus 3 is 2. So we have -1 equals 1 all over 1 over b times 2. 1 over b times 2 will give us 2 over b. So let's continue this down here. We have -1 equals 1 all over 2 over b. Right, 1 over b times 2 is just going to be 2 over b. And now anytime that you have a fraction in the denominator of another fraction, like for instance, we have 1 over 2 over b, this 2 over b over here is a fraction in the denominator. What we're going to do, this 1 all over 2 over b is the same thing as multiplying the numerator and flipping the denominator. So we're going to multiply the numerator with the flipped version of the denominator, or just b over 2. So flip the denominator, so from 2 over b, we go to b over 2, and multiply that with the numerator, and that's what you get. So 1 all over 2 over b is the same thing as b over 2. So let's go ahead and continue this problem up above. -1 will equal b over 2 now, since we saw that 1 all over 2 over b is the same thing as b over 2. So now we're going to multiply both sides by 2. And when we do, we get b equals -2. So we know our b value now, so we're going to take our b equals -2 and plug it back into our original equation. So now we have g of x will equal 1 all over our b value of -2, so -1/2 times x plus 3, all minus 1. Okay? And that's number 2. So let's go on to example number 3 now. For example number 3, we have g of x equals a times 1 over x minus h plus k. That's the equation we're going to put this graph into. So again, we're going to figure out our vertical and horizontal asymptotes first. Here's our vertical asymptote. It's the one that goes up and down. It's going to be in the form x equals h. In this case, every single x value on this line, every single point on that line has an x value of -2. So that means our vertical asymptote has an equation of x equals -2, which means our h value is -2. Our horizontal asymptote will be this red one over here. It's the one that goes left to right. That's the horizontal. And every single point on the asymptote has a y value of +1. So that means our horizontal asymptote is y equals 1. And if our horizontal asymptote is y equals 1, that means our k value is 1. So we have our h and our k. We're going to take them and put them into our equation that we gave you. So g of x, that will equal our a term that we're solving for, times 1 all over our x minus our h value. So x minus -2 is x plus 2. Made that line a little too long. And all of that plus 1. So now we're going to pick one of our 2 points that we gave you guys, -3, +5, or -1, -3. It doesn't matter which one you choose. Any point on the graph will work. So I'm going to go with -1, -3. So -3 equals a times 1 all over -1 plus 2, all plus 1. So minus 1 on both sides. We get -4 equals our a term 2 plus negative 1 is just going to be a positive 1. So we get 1 over 1, or really just 1. So our A value is negative 4. All right, so we have our A term, we have our H term, and our K term. We can take all of those, put them into the original equation. So we have g of x equals negative 4 times 1 all over x plus 2 plus 1. So that's the equation for number 3. Okay, and for number 4, I want you guys to try that one on your own. Pause the video if you have to, but do try it, and I'll go to the next page or the next slide in a second, and we'll go over it. Okay, so this is what you should have done for number 4. The answer ultimately was g of x equals 1 all over 2 times x minus 4 all minus 3. And how we did that, we went about it just like we did the last 3 problems. We figure out our vertical and our horizontal asymptotes first. Our vertical asymptote was x equals positive 4, which will be right here. Right, that's our vertical asymptote. And our horizontal asymptote was this line right here, or this dashed line right there. So we have our vertical and our horizontal asymptotes. And once we do, what we're going to do is get the equation for both of them. Our vertical asymptote was x equals 4. Our horizontal one was y equals negative 3. So our h and our k term become 4 and negative 3 respectively. We take both of those terms, we plug them into our equation that we gave you from the beginning, because that's the form we want to be in. So we get g of x equals 1 all over 1 over b times x minus 4 minus 3. That's what we get right over here. We plug in our h and our k. And then we plug in either one of the 2 points, 3.5, negative 4, or 4.5, negative 2. It doesn't matter. I went with 3.5, negative 4. When I plug both of those points in and I solve for b, I end up getting to this point right here, where I have negative 1 equals 1 all over 1 over b times negative 1/2, which ends up giving us negative 1 equals 1 all over negative 1 over 2 over b, right over here. And once I start solving for b, remember 1 all over negative 1 over 2 over b will end up giving us negative 2 over b. You multiply the numerator and you flip the denominator. If you have a denominator, a fraction in the denominator, you flip it, multiply with the numerator. And when you do, you get negative 2b. So 1 all over negative 1 over 2b is negative 2b. So you solve for b, in this case down here below, and you end up getting b equals positive 1/2. So we put that back into our equation, and we ultimately get our answer of g of x equals 1 all over 2 times x minus 4 minus 3. Since it has been a form 1 all over b, and 1 all over 1/2 is just 2. Okay? So hopefully this helped, guys. I try to keep it as short as possible. And that's it for the notes.